1-week season.
1 week season, fam, La Familia. Welcome back. Wake and Snake, week 8. My name is Mike Johnson, M Johnson 86, as I am known in those DFS and best ball streets. We are coming to you live for the first time. This was the original plan of how this would look. First time it is actually coming together. Got a few questions from our Best Ball Plus premium subscribers. Sent something out in the Discord this morning. Curious to see if any of them were able to get in this draft we're about to do. I will get to work here. We're going to bring on my esteemed colleague, Billy. Billy, welcome in. You can go ahead and say hello. I'm going to put my draft board on the screen here.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I got my official Wake and Snake, Wake and Bake shirt on this morning, just trying to feel more appropriate.
There you go. There you go. And I'm rocking. We are drafting on drafters this morning, which should be exciting for the Best Ball Plus people. You can see we are rolling along. I have the 12th pick here, which probably is my least favorite draft position. But I'm going to go ahead. I'll take Drake London. I'm going to double down at wide receiver here. We'll add Marvin Harrison just for good measure. So it's an interesting spot there at the 12 spot. I'm not a huge fan of that's probably my least favorite draft position. I think for me, after there's like the top 5 wide receivers in McCaffrey, and then there's Brees, Bijan. Actually, I have A.J. Brown kind of up in that group too, but then Brees and Bijan with Wilson and Puka. And then I just to me, Gibbs is like a tier below. And then there's a whole tier of wide receivers after Puka and Wilson that from there until the mid 3rd round, they're pretty flat for me.
Yeah, I think we share a lot of similar sentiments on that. 12 is definitely my least favorite spot, which is funny because I think you drafted your best team last year from the 12 spot, if I'm remembering correctly.
Correct. Yes. Got double dipped at wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. The rest is history. Mm-hmm. Was not going for week 17 correlation because this is cumulative scoring contest, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a few things from the chat that they wanted to discuss. I guess we could talk. The first question was about the Green Bay wide receivers. It's such a weird spot to me. I saw Dontavian Wicks go 99th overall in a draft just earlier, in the last 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wild to me that an NFL team that they do use their tight ends a decent amount. They run some 2 running back sets, and they have 4 wide receivers consistently going in the first 120 picks. I guess, do you have any thoughts? Do you have any read there? Obviously, I'm in Wisconsin, so I have my thoughts, but curious what how you've been handling them, what you're kind of thinking overall.
Well, Mike, that I like my guys. Some of them in the 3rd or 4th round, they may play for the Cleveland Browns. They may be on 30% of my rosters. We won't go there. But in terms of Packers, I'm highest on Jaden Reed. He's going earliest, typically a guy that I feel like you're grabbing in the mid 5th round. To me, I think that he has the most upside of any of the pass catchers. And he's the only Packer that I'm going to say that I personally am prioritizing. The others, I do my best not to reach for, just because, again, 4 going in the top 120. You may get lucky and grab the right one. I just think it's a big crapshoot. For me, I like the correlation more than I think that you like prioritizing it. And we've chatted about that on previous streams. I think that if I grab Love as my quarterback in 9th, 10th, 11th round, for me, I'm making more of a priority to grab Luke Musgrave around 150, 160. That's more of my, I like that opportunity cost a little bit better.
Yeah, and I do think that type of situation where it's like a mid-round quarterback, and then you're able to get their starting tight end. We know like Kylo's dove in a lot to the quarterback tight end, the correlation there, and touchdowns and all that. Best Ball Plus subscribers have heard all that gamut, but so I think that makes a little more sense. But I'm kind of with you on the receivers where I don't know that there is. All right, perfect. This will lead into the next one. So I'm going to take Tank Dell, and then.
Ooh, I saw you contemplating it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it for your sake here. I'll just take Laporta. I'll just be boring and take the top two on the board.
Mm-hmm.
So the Green Bay receivers, like you kind of alluded to, it's likely. I think it's the likeliest scenario is that one of them has you look at where their rounds being drafted right now are. Jaden Reed is usually the 5th round. Watson's around the 6th, 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Dubs in the 9th and Wicks in the 10th-ish, 10th or 11th. So I think it's most likely that at the end of the season, when you see how their production plays out, that it is one of them is going to drastically disappoint from where Wicks is being drafted.
Agreed.
One of them is going to be about where Wicks is being drafted. And then there's either going to be a couple that are around where Watson's drafted, or one might separate and be the equivalent of a 3rd or 4th rounder. So I guess the intriguing part for me, just looking at the, asymmetric upside and the bet that you're making, the tough part for me with Reed is even in a best case scenario, he's kind of slightly outperforming where he's being drafted. There's almost too much other competition to where he's just totally gonna I don't see him performing a 2nd or early 3rd round pick. So he doesn't have that much upside relative to his downside. So I do, I guess, in a vacuum, like him the most, but and I guess you could argue the reason he's being drafted is his skill set is just so much different than the rest of those guys. Whereas the other 3, nobody really knows exactly how it'll play out. And then obviously Watson's hamstring is the big X factor there.
Yeah, I know we're not going to get too much into some of the behind the paywall stuff, but to me, when I'm drafting Reed, he's not my wide receiver 1 or my wide receiver 2. He's generally the 4th wide receiver on a roster for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mind. In my mind, he has the safest floor, and you do want some of that.
Yeah. I mean, and they're definitely, they're an ascending offense, so it's rare to have an offense that is young and ascending and has as much kind of hype around them, and still be able to get a lot of pieces at those prices. And I actually, this week on my Tuesday training session for Best Ball Plus subscribers, I'm going to be digging into kind of big picture across drafters, how I kind of allocate my portfolio and break things down as far as player exposures, not just the individual player exposures, but how I put them together on rosters. So it's kind of a good segue there. So nicely done, host. A+.
I mean, I think we just went Josh Jacobs off the board as the first Packer in 51. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just an offense, as you said, ascending that, you're not paying top 4 rounds of draft capital to get any of them. So
right. Usually when you have an offense where the first player to go off the board is in the 5th round, you're looking at an offense that is projected much worse than the Packers. I know we're high on the Titans, but their first players off the board are coming up here: Ridley and Hopkins, 5th, 6th round. The Panthers, Deontay Johnson about to be the first one, but those offenses are projected so much worse than the Packers that that's kind of the thing with rankings, with average draft position, and how that all kind of comes together. Is it's all based on, it starts with projection systems, and when you have an offense like this, there's just so much uncertainty that those projection systems are naturally going to be flawed because they're not going to account for varying scenarios. So creates a great buying opportunity, I think. All right, here we go. Pick 60 and 61. Ridley, there he is. Ridley off the board. Jaden Reed just went. So I am going to go ahead. I'm going to double tap. I'm going to get some correlation for you, Billy. I'm going to take Worthy and Mahomes.
That's what I would have done in your spot too.
Purposely took Mahomes in the 6th, so I could say I got Mahomes in the 6th. So I got 4 wide receivers here, and then Mahomes and Laporta, filling up my quarterback and tight end silos. As Best Ball Plus subscribers will know what I'm talking about there. Want to go back to another question from the Discord was about the Houston wide receiver room. I know from our very first pod that we did, or the first Wake and Snake, they were a team you brought up. So, you want to just talk a little bit about kind of where you're at with them, what you're thinking, how you're approaching the Houston wide receiver room, any of that. I guess you could talk a little bit about Stroud too, who his ADP has dropped a bit. I'm going to fill up my water quick. You can go on. I can still hear you.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting. I feel like as I've done more drafts, got more in the weeds with you, and, gone through, the Best Ball Plus package as we're continuing to give more and more information to the subscribers week in and week out. I feel like overall my stance on the Texans offense has cooled. Not because I'm any less high on the offense. It's just the opportunity cost of 3 wide receivers going in the third, 2nd and 3rd round. And again, what is their real upside? In my opinion, I think that Nico Collins could be a top 12 wide receiver overall. But I don't know that I think that Diggs or Dell could be. And I think in that same range, in the 2nd and 3rd round, you're passing up guys who have legitimate top 10 overall wide receiver upside, where I think that just because there's 3 alphas, 3 great wide receivers, they're just going to cannibalize themselves. So to me, the only one that I found myself taking shots on in the last literally $102 drafts has been Nico Collins. And it's when he's slipping to 17, 18, 19, 20 overall, not reaching for him at 13. But that's how I've been approaching it. I have been more warm to Stroud when I'm seeing him go later. I've seen him go in the 70s, early 70s. And I feel like it, kind of that end of the 6th, early 7th round, I'm interested at that point. What about yourself?
Yeah, so I think for me, it comes back to I look at that wide receiver room. You've got Collins, you've got Diggs, you've got Tank Dell. So obviously, Collins and Dell were both very good last year to varying degrees. I think that Diggs' skill set is more similar to Dell's. They're just smaller receivers, more technician types. Nico's more of the big body type guy. Kind of how we talked about in Green Bay, Jaden Reed being different than the rest of the guys and that kind of separating him. I think Nico's physical skill set, he has that profile where it wouldn't be shocking if in 2 years he's one of the top 7-8 wide receivers in the league tied to Stroud. Then you've got Diggs, obviously has done it. He's been an alpha. He tailed off at the end of last year. There's been talk, was it injury? Was it because he was disgruntled? Did he piss off Josh Allen? Probably a little bit of all of those things. But so I think kind of the order they're being drafted, Nico, then Diggs, then Dell, is probably how I'd prioritize them. And I think that it definitely lines up with, like, it makes sense, right? As I'm up here, I'm going to take a couple running backs. We'll take Montgomery, and then Jones or Swift. We'll go ahead. We'll take Swift here. So, hey, look at that. Montgomery and Laporta. I've got 2/3 of my Detroit team stack from last year's 7th place team. I also had St. Brown on that team, but all these guys cost a little bit more this year after their last season.
Yeah, anyways, off.
What's that?
I was trying to decide if we were going to have the conversation on the Monday stream. I'll just go for a yes or no. If Goff is available at 132, 133, would you consider him?
No, and Best Ball Plus subscribers know why.
Perfect. That's where I was trying to go with it, and not say too
much. So, back to Houston. So, something I wanted to drop. I will drop a little strategy for the on the free stream here. So, big picture, looking at that Houston wide receiver room, I do think, and you kind of alluded to this, those 3 wide receivers at their prices, it is really unlikely they're all going to pay off, right? Like, it's almost impossible. I mean, if they did, then Stroud should be like the QB1. He should be first guy off the board. I don't think they do. The most likely scenario I guess if they all, let me start over. If they all stay healthy, if they all play like the whole season, I think they're all going to disappoint. They're all going to fail to meet where they're currently being drafted. So the scenario for any of them meeting where they are being drafted. So if you take Nico Collins, if you take Diggs, if you take Dell, to me is that one of them has some sort of injury, misses significant time, where it becomes a clear top 2 pecking order type situation. Or, this guy, maybe multiple of them miss. And so, like in this situation, and Tank Dell is just like the guy. So the strategy piece of that is, and we've talked about this guy before, Noah Brown. So this is where, for me, I'm not necessarily prioritizing Stroud. Like, Dell fell to a spot there where I just that end of that third, fourth turn, the wide receiver range kind of takes a big drop. I think after Dell, I think he has a little bit higher upside than some of the other guys there. But so now I have him on the roster. So in the 19th, 20th round, I'm going to be looking to take Noah Brown as my 8th or 9th wide receiver there. Just piecing that together, where what's the scenario where Tank Dell outperforms that, like, wide receiver 24 or wherever he was drafted? How does he become a top 12 to 15 wide receiver on the season? Probably an injury to at least one of Collins or Diggs that misses significant time. In that scenario, Noah Brown's going to be playing 3 wide receiver sets in a pretty high-powered offense. So just kind of piecing together the pieces and I guess telling that story, like my storyboards that I do, which we'll have a new one out. Hopefully editors will have it out tomorrow. That's kind of how I'm approaching the Houston wide receiver room. So a little bit extra for the free the free listeners today.
Yep. It's funny we didn't talk about it, but I'm doing something similar. And generally, if I've got Stroud on a roster, I a lot of times I will have one of those 3 at the top of the board. And so I am grabbing Noah Brown in the 20th round because he's there every time.
Yep. All right. So about to get back to me here. Let's see. Tyjae Spears just went. Was thinking about double tapping Tennessee running backs. I know you would have enjoyed that.
I would have.
So what do we have here? So we're still just sitting on 4 wide receivers. Worthy is one of them, and he's obviously a bit of a crapshoot with his situation, his hamstring, and does Rice get suspended? Does he not get suspended? I'm starting to lean to the no side on that.
Yeah. And his ADP is rising to kind of reflect that. I think that's a common view.
Mm-hmm.
I think a guy we've talked about a lot in this spot, I think could be of interest to you. You could go Benson. I think I would have gone Ford.
Yeah. I think there's a small but outside chance Ford is still available at the next one, and I decided to go Benson, pairing him up with Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
So if Harrison has a season where he is worthy of that 1-2 pick, kind of like I said last year in my 7th place team, I had St. Brown. I took him at the 1-2 turn. Took Montgomery at the basically the same exact pick 84 last year, and then I got Laporta late. So kind of the same thing. I have Harrison. If he pays off that draft position, Arizona offense probably doing pretty well. Got the young rookie, so pair him up there. Maybe add like a Michael Wilson type later, and that's kind of how, for me, the stacking. And again, Best Ball Plus subscribers know why, but the quarterback is kind of like a cherry on top to stacking rather than. I think a lot of the industry makes it like the priority of the stack is stacking around the quarterback. Hey, all right, let's talk about, I drafted, somebody asked about the KC wide receiver room. Obviously, I have Mahomes and Worthy on this team. What are you thinking there? I kind of alluded to my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think with again, and it's something that Hilo shared in the Best Ball Plus. Just expected points by each offense, with Kansas City, I think, being at the top or maybe being number 2. I think that Kansas City wide receiver room is going to be a room you got to get right in order to win this contest. Maybe I'm being dramatic there, but a lot of the, certainly after the Rice news, he was going in the 7th, 8th round. They're going to be an explosive offense, whether it's Kelsey or whether it's a wide receiver. I think that one of their wide receivers or Kelsey is going to vastly exceed their draft position. That's my opinion. I think that Worthy is the biggest unknown, just with him being a rookie. To me, I've taken the Rashee Rice news as an opportunity to be buying on him a lot. I've kind of cooled on that in the last week or two as I feel like his ADP has come back and is rising again I've seen him go in the 60s.
He went 71st here, but his ADP is now at 69. I think Drafters uses the last like 5 or 7 days. So yeah, he's basically a locked in 6th round pick now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, I think that if you're doing 150 rosters, I would diversify. I would take some shots of all of them, because in my opinion, you're likely to be right on some of them.
Mm-hmm. I think Kelsey, like you said, I think he needs to be included in the discussion about them, and I have him. He's at that 3rd, 4th round turn. He's a guy I've been taking a lot more of lately, just because, like I talked about earlier with the Tank Dell pick, there's like a big drop kind of there. In this draft, Kelsey went at pick 30, but when he falls into that 3rd, 4th round turn type range, I've been getting a lot of drafts where maybe I'm picking at like the 10th or 11th pick. And if both Laporta and Kelsey are there, I'll pass on both of them and just take whichever one drops back to me. Let's see. I got 2 picks here. All right. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Adonai Mitchell, and we'll throw Yeah, I've got Shaheed. Let's throw Kendre Miller on this roster as well. But so yeah, I mean, he's kind of the X factor because he's been like, especially since Tyreek left, like the guy. Uh, I think you alluded to it. I think Rice, even where he's being drafted now, I look at the other guys being drafted in that same range. So you've got Jordan Addison, McConkey, Rome Odunze, Keon Coleman, Christian Watson, Deontay Johnson, and then you got Hopkins and Ridley. You know, those are the guys kind of going around or before him. I think Rice there's a big drop after when he goes in terms of upside of the wide receivers. So I think he's kind of appropriately priced right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of depends on what the rest of my roster looks like at that point. But yeah, Hollywood Brown is a guy I've been taking a lot more of in the fourth round, end of the fourth round. Just a lot of reports of him having good rapport with Mahomes. And obviously, like he's been really good. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, kind of bringing it all together, which is ironic because I have Worthy on this roster. He's definitely the guy I'm lowest on of that group. But he's also a rookie with like record speed, so playing with Mahomes. So, and I think he's a lot different than like he's not Sky Moore, he's not McCole Hardman. Like he is a much more well-rounded player than either of those guys were.
Yeah. Hey, McCole Hardman had 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
He did. He did. And then is he unemployed now?
I believe he is. Go Dogs. He's a UGA guy.
Oh, looks like actually I think he did. It looks like hey, perfect. He did just re-sign with the Chiefs.
Oh, good for him.
There you go. So maybe something to watch there. Maybe maybe he's a guy I'll throw in at the back of this. Him and Noah Brown as like the 7th and 8th or 8th and 9th wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I know you said that you're not as high on Worthy, but I think that it gets. I know we're just doing a draft, but I think that kind of alludes to the diversifying. You may be higher on one wide receiver than the other, but I think in general at OWS we find that we're really good at identifying the right spots. So to me, it's like when I play daily fantasy. If I'm really high on Kansas City this week, I'm not just going to build all my rosters around one wide receiver. I don't want to nail the right situation and then just have the one wrong guy, even though it was kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but certainly plausible that Worthy could be the guy. So, yeah, I mean, I do like spreading out your allocations a little bit here and having some Mahomes and Worthy roster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. T. Higgins, I believe, signed his
He did.
franchise tag. So little bit of stability there. Where did he even go in this draft? I want to look back.
Usually like 4th round.
45. Yeah, I didn't know if he's, if we'll see him bump up now that that kind of has stabilized. I would think that we might see. So Jermaine Burton went pick 144, and he was his ADP had gotten up to like the mid 130s. So wouldn't be surprised if we saw Burton's ADP drop, from he's at like 138 right now on drafters, see him drop closer to the like 150 range where he previously was. I think a lot of that was just speculation on does the T. Higgins situation spill into training camp? Does it open up opportunities for him? Obviously, Burton still probably going to be in the 3 wide receiver sets for the Bengals. And if anything happens to Chase or Higgins, he'd be a full-time player with Joe Burrow throwing to him. So still a good player, but changes the outlook a bit. I guess the upside scenario. So picks 156 and 57 here. I'm going to take Jalen Wright. And what do I have? 6 receivers. There you go. reach a little bit for Michael Wilson, as I talked about before, pairing him with Benson and Harrison, kind of stacking up, bet on the Cardinals offense, and then Jalen Wright, that Dolphins running back room. You talked about the Chiefs wide receiver room being one. Getting right is going to be important on Dolphins running back room. Also could very easily be kind of a difference making spot.
Yeah, since we're talking risers, followers, and news. I don't know how newsworthy it is, but I think Michael Wilson just got married this weekend. So like,
apparently she's like a big soccer star,
big soccer player.
Yeah.
Sorry, not in the know on that one, but
yeah. Aaron Jones, we had a subscriber ask about Aaron Jones. So Jones is I like Jones. I've always loved Jones as a player. My worry, I guess, with him specific to this format is just his durability. So, which is interesting. I took DeAndre Swift over him due to durability, but Montgomery, I think, fits the format a little better in that, especially on the build of this roster. But I think I like Jones a lot. I guess I'll say on DraftKings. I think his weekly upside is really high. So yeah, and kind of similar to when I took Benson on the Harris, because I have Harrison on this roster. Mm-hmm. So kind of jumping with Benson, similar to that Justin Jefferson rosters. I'm more likely to try to take when it falls that way in the draft. I'm not like making crazy reaches, but Jones or Ty Chandler are a little more appealing to me on Justin Jefferson rosters, just because, just that thought. If Jefferson is healthy and providing that top 5 wide receiver season, that probably means the Vikings offense is doing pretty well. And when an offense does well, usually there's a running back scoring some points. So, yeah. Sam, did you see the Sam Darnold stuff? Subscriber asked about that too.
I did. Yeah, I've got the Discord open on my phone, just making sure I'm not missing any.
Do you believe it, or do you think it's just like fluff that he's going to enter as the starter? Are they just doing the whole you got to earn it thing? Like they're just saying that?
Do I know? No, I don't know. I will say I hope that it's just fluff, because for me, I feel like I've taken a decent amount of McCarthy, like late, like 19th, 20th round on rosters that need a third quarterback. I have 0 Sam Darnold, so I'm hoping that it's just fluff. But yeah, I did see that, and I'm glad a subscriber asked. I think it's worth noting, and something to monitor. Do you have a strong opinion on it?
I have a hard time seeing them going the whole season without JJ McCarthy becoming the starter. I think it's plausible. I do think Darnold is probably a lot better than like the general perception is. I think he's had some tough situations. You look at the train wreck that the Jets were. You look at even when he was in Carolina. All
right, you're on the clock here.
Yeah.
I think you're at a spot where I'd consider a quarterback. There's a reason why I'm bringing it up, because there's somebody that I want you to take. Because I want you to take the top of the board.
Yeah, no, I don't want to take him.
Okay.
And I just accidentally auto-picked. Well, I took him. My screen froze for a second, and I took him. And then I'm going to take Rashawn Johnson. So I've got Johnson and Swift from the Chicago backfield. You got your wish. Aaron Rodgers is there. I was thinking about taking Carr instead, but there we are. I actually intended to take a tight end there, but hopefully a couple.
Yeah, I was gonna have you grab. I was gonna have you grab Tyler Conklin there too. Just that way we.
I was thinking likely. Main reason with him just being. Actually, you know what? Not, and I'll talk a bit about. It's actually one of the topics I've got either for this week or next week on my training sessions. This probably wouldn't have been a roster I would have wanted to take likely on. I'll explain why on in the subscriber channel. But yeah, what were we talking about before I hopped up on the board?
We were talking about Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah, the Vikings. Yes, Darnold. I think he's better than people give him credit for. I think he's got a ton of weapons. I think he could be really good as in weekly winners on underdog. Like if you wanted to wait a long time on a quarterback, if you wanted to stack the Vikings and throw like Darnold on a Justin Jefferson roster, just because it could be super low owned, and I think he could start the season as the quarterback. It wouldn't shock me either if he started the season as the quarterback and ends up getting traded. I think you look at what the Cardinals did last season with Josh Dobbs starting, performed fairly well. They ended up being able to trade him, ironically, to the Vikings, who needed a quarterback and were in playoff contention. So I think that is very feasible. Their plan, when you're hearing two different things, or you hear one thing, but it seems obvious that they would go a different way, somewhere in the middle. I think that's true in a lot of things in life. But when there's two different extremes, usually the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think he will enter camp as the starter. McCarthy is crazy young for a prospect too. That's part of why his draft, he was drafted so highly, and some people were so high on him coming out, because he said, despite being in a run first offense, had so much success, and he's very young. But I do think Darnold could be a guy that, and in that scenario, you could get close to a full season out of him. So I think in this format, depending on the roster, maybe that's something I'll dig into in the Tuesday session as well. Types of rosters where I would try to target him.
Mm-hmm. So last guy off the board, Jalen McMillan, was a subscriber request.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question was, do we think he sees more field time as the wide receiver 2 with Godwin playing in the slot more? Personally, I think that's something that we could see. Coaches have been really high on him. I think Trey Palmer, which I want to say was their 6th round pick last year, I think he's still dealing with an injury, so he hasn't been on the field during OTAs. So you're seeing more, or the coaches getting to see more of McMillan. Hard to say if they're more fluff pieces, but there have been a lot of positive reports out of camp. And again, around 200th overall, which is where he's going a lot in a lot of drafts. This is honestly early to see him go in the 190s. Actually don't know his ADP, but I would guess it's in the 205 range, 210 range.
It's 195. Yeah.
195.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm willing, on rosters where I want to take more wide receivers. He's the guy I like.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that that I would have done that. Oh,
trying to, what round am I here? 18th. Make sure there's nobody important that I'm missing. I'm gonna take Gesicki. So I got Chig and Gesicki as my other 2 tight ends, with Laporta. Obviously, so need a second tight end at least. Usually going to take 3 in this format.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, so Noah Fant, Jonnu, Isaiah Likely, and Chig are kind of the guys I try to target in this range. That's kind of where, if I hadn't taken Johnson, I was going to take Likely there. I don't prioritize bye weeks, but also you can't like take zeros in this format. So Laporta with a 5th round bye, Okonkwo also with a 5th round bye. So just needed to get another tight end that I feel pretty confident about being on the field in week 5. So, Gesicki, I like your boy Woods, who I know you saw me about to click him, but just his injury history, and we have a long time till between camp, preseason.
You don't want to take a zero. I get it.
Yeah, so he just seemed like a little bit higher risk of missing that week. So becomes a high leverage point. Does Mike Gesicki play in week 5? The McMillan question, though, I think so. Their coach was talking to reporters this last week. He mentioned McMillan, and he said he made a comment, something to the effect of Trey Palmer and another guy were guys who are working behind him, like who he are like the next guys after him. Basically alluding to like he is after Godwin and Evans, he is like the next guy. The subscriber question was, do I think that with Godwin playing in the slot more, will McMillan, will he is he going to start in 2 wide receiver sets? So like Godwin being in the slot more in today's NFL doesn't mean like, this isn't like Wes Welker where he would, when the Patriots played 3 wide receivers, he would come in and he would play in the slot. And when they went to 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers, he would come out. Guys move around a lot. And Godwin's, a talented guy with a skill set. Godwin and Evans are going to be basically full-time players. It's going to be a situation where Godwin is going to move into the slot for probably 30 to 40% of his snaps, which will be, pretty high across league average. And then McMillan will be that 3rd wide receiver out there with them when there's 3 wide receivers on the field. That said, like I alluded to, the coaches seem pretty set on him being that next guy, which means he's going to have opportunities in, again, what seems like a pretty good offense. And should Godwin or Evans ever miss, he's got kind of 2 shots at becoming a higher target priority.
Yeah. So last wide receiver, actually, more and Bourne just one I was going to say. We've seen A.T. Perry's stock kind of drop the last week or two, which is kind of some of that coach speak about him having a lot of stuff he needs to work on. I think what we were seeing him in the 190s and 2 or 3 weeks ago, and now he's kind of more falling into the 220s. Interesting of note, I think it's a potential buying opportunity, in your 19th or 20th round pick. I don't know that I would shy away from him. I think New Orleans is not going to be a terrible offense this year.
Yeah, I would concur. So I got my last 2 picks here. So I'm going to go ahead and take Noah Brown. And then I'm kind of between Khalif Raymond and Elijah Moore's kind of the other guy that I would look at here. I think I'm going to take Raymond. Pretty heavy on the, like I said before, that Detroit stack that I had last year with Montgomery, St. Brown, and Laporta got the same, except Raymond instead of St. Brown this year. Noah Brown tying in with the Tank Dell pick. And I did want 9 wide receivers. As I said, I've got some questions around Dell, kind of just with that whole Houston situation. And then Worthy is one that he's an upside pick, but not one that I'm like crazy confident in. So, getting those 2 wide receivers, I said the thing about maybe taking Hardman, but I don't know. I can't pull the trigger on McCole Hardman right now.
No,
it's
too early. You'd be unique.
Yeah, not before noon. That's just crazy talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess anything else that you think any other market stuff we should touch on for this week?
I think we covered. I'm looking through. Make sure we covered.
Oh, you talked about Perry, A.T. Perry. Yeah, I think so. It's kind of funny to me how, and obviously I'm very in tune. I follow a lot of like my For You tab. The algorithm has me figured out on X, but like, yeah, there was the comment about like, yeah, he's got some things he needs to work on, but like also it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Dennis Allen, the head coach for the Saints, was talking about how for Olave, like they want to get a lot more out of him. They want like to push him. Like they think he could improve a lot in like yards after catch and a couple other things. Like, so I think that like Allen just seems like the type of coach who like he's not like the rah-rah type guy that you're just gonna get like these raving reports about players. So I think it's kind of an interesting like reaction because there's that, but then also I saw a beat reporter, like somebody retweeted a tweet from one of the Saints beat reporter about how A.T. Perry made like two just like incredible grabs in red zone drills. I think Spencer Rattler was the one who threw it to him, the rookie 4th or 5th round pick out of South Carolina.
Wow.
But it's just funny how like I think that those inefficiencies at this time in the season, you talked about how those comments dropped Perry. He's going a couple rounds later now than he was a couple weeks ago. People like overreacting to these comments from a coach who like just generally isn't saying a ton of like he's not the guy that's going to get super excited about all his players. Like some coaches, that's how they approach it. Like you're not going to find him say negative stuff. But then like dude actually goes out and makes a couple like crazy plays and nobody notices. So I think that's when you're in the weeds and some of the things you can find, and I guess just zigging when the market zags, there's profit opportunities there in June and July.
I agree with you. Looks like we covered all the subscriber questions.
Yeah.
And enjoyed drafting with you. Look at us, under an hour again.
Look at that, rolling along, picking from the 12 spot. Mahomes and Rodgers got the MVPs. This was, and you're the real MVP, Stat.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that.
Hey, thank you to everyone for joining us. 1 week season, Best Ball Plus. Check us out if you're not already a subscriber. Go to the site, check us out. We have training sessions, basically individualized training sessions focused on DraftKings, drafters, underdog, and game theory. We also have written content. We have rankings. We've got a lot that we are providing, and we are doing it in a different way than you're going to see across a lot of the industry. So if you are not already a subscriber, check us out. Price dropped in June. We have, in all those training sessions, a lot of it is evergreen. So it can help you not just, in my opinion, not just become a better basketball player, but if you're a DFS player, a lot of the theories and thought processes will help translate into your DFS season. So we will be back next week. Want to try this again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you good with this time again?
Yeah, I think that works great. I got to do 150 drafts, man. I got to be able to get some of that awesome swag you got.
Right. Yeah, the drafters. There we go. I don't know if this is what the one I got from last year. So I don't know if they'll run it back or if they've got something cool I don't even know about. So we'll have to see. But thank you for being with us, Billy. Everyone, thanks for watching. Looks like we're up around 150 people. So that's awesome. Hope to see you all back next week. Best of luck. We will see you in the draft rooms. We will see you in Discord and on Twitter. I am Mike. He is Billy. Goodbye.
1 week season.